It's been a while since I've checked in. Today I'm a little bit late with this analysis, but I thought it was a very good one, and also to kind of discuss a little bit about my approach to this type of projects. When watching a game, um, we don't really have a lot of factors that help us determine what is one team really trying to do and what is the other team really trying to do. What we can do is create a process of kind of theorize and from there be able to break down part by part. The moment I tell you what I think, it could be seemed as subjective. What I try to do is to kind of theorize based on these actions, based on how a player makes a decision, based on the communication he receives with the ball, off the ball, the other team, what the other team's doing, where it is on the field. We can kind of come up to a conclusion. But again, it's really difficult to know unless you really ask them. So the process in my own environment, you have to go through the principles and sub principles of your team. Um, and then from there you move on to the structures, how you organize offensively, how you organize defensively. You review the film from the past game or maybe the opponent. You look at the restarts, you look at how the behaviors and cooperations of each player, the fundamentals of each player. You look at the fundamentals of each line, each sector, and the whole. And lastly, you're looking at the individual fundamentals as well. Um, Today, we can look at many principles and sub principles. We can look at our own. For example, everyone has their own way of looking at their principles and sub principles. You also have the way you perceive, the way you see that Arsenal is organized on the field. But you cannot review the game plan. You can review every single restart of the game, the last three games, so on and so forth. And you can evaluate the individual fundamentals per position, and then the individual fundamentals per line. So this is our own. And when I talk about my own, I talk about all of them based on theory, based on ideas that some of them I have developed through experience with my own team. Others I have watched from other coaches. Others I have been taught from other coaches. But today specifically, we're going to talk about Arsenal against Manchester City. Arsenal in red with three center backs, two wing backs, and a partnership of two central midfielders with three attackers, but the nine becoming more of like a 10 on defense. Um, Different approaches based on periods. In the first half, you had a lot of David Silva and Sterling coming inside with Gondoyan and De Bruyne. De Bruyne usually playing in this line, coming to the sixth line and be able to double pivot against Lacazette. Why this makes sense to play with two? It wasn't because Arsenal was gonna counterattack. It was mainly because to create an advantage. So if this player is marking him, there's still a 2 against 1. If he marks him, there's still 2 against 1. That's the main reason. And the next one was, they did play against two nines, and in the first half there wasn't really much of a change in terms of the structure, as you will see in the second half where they turn it into a line of three because they have two nines. So let's look at the first example and see how Arsenal pressed. You will see the team in red. You will see the 2 against 1 in the sixth line. You will see I have the two nines funneling to the middle, forcing the ball to the middle. And the idea was control the center channels. Don't let them go through the middle, but if you do force them to go to the middle, that is your trap. And as you can see, you force a negative ball, maybe some turnovers. Okay. Here's another example. When they got broken, it was very important to protect the center backs. Not because of the players on that line, not because of Sterling or any player on the last line, but it was because De Bruyne, David Silva, maybe Mendy, they add very well to the next line. So if you look at this moment here, they let go of the first priority, and the next priority is to protect the center back. So as you notice, the right center back does a good job in either the intention to step, but then the space in behind becomes more important because David Silva is running in behind. So this is very good organization in terms of once the first press was broken, be able to block the middle, protect the center backs, and control the center channels again. And this is this picture. So the right center back has the intention to press the ball here. But at the same time, this runner poses a big threat. So being able to identify what's more important in this moment, press the ball or cover the space in behind. And as you see in the clip, David Silva does make the run. And by then, the pressure comes from the second line, which are the midfielders. Here's another example of when they were broken. Both strikers forcing the ball to the middle, Lacazette with the strong side midfielder every time. There's the second one. Watch David Silva, watch De Bruyne. This is what the problem was. This is what you want to prevent. It's not so much the space on the last line, but the guys that are adding to it. And then again, protecting the cutback, very important at that moment. Okay? So in the second half, the 2 9s against 2 center backs was a big problem. So there were 2 changes. Right now we'll talk about the first one. Kyle Walker was sitting in. Why? Because of 2 9s. The structure in the midfield for Manchester City changed a little bit. Instead of De Bruyne staying in the 6th line, he would push up a little bit higher. A lot of the times in the interior, and De Bruyne given the freedom to roam behind the second line, which was important because you wanted to create a 2 versus 1 against the midfielder on the ball side. So if the ball is with Kyle Walker, you wanted to create a 2 versus 1 here. Okay. The next thing was, if the ball came here, if he stepped, that creates an opening. If the ball is to Sterling, that creates an opening. So it was a very tricky situation. So the idea, 2 versus 1 on the midfielder on the strong side. Let's look at an example. As you can see, the line of 3 and the main change. Kyle Walker sitting, holding a little bit. David Silva making the 2 versus 1 against Lacazette, and De Bruyne getting higher. The width on the left side on the top of the screen is Mendy. Sterling in between lines. More freedom to go all the way to the strong side if needed. And Mahrez providing the width. There's the space created on the weak side, which was not always being able to expose. On the turn, so we talked about the space on the weak side. Why create this space here? Why bring Sterling from the width all the way in? We discussed earlier the 2 versus 1s against the midfielder on the ball side. The second thing was, if the ball was not able to move and advance to the last line, off the switch, you allow different actions to be present. For example, the 9 checking in, Sterling running behind, which he is able to do. And then if Sterling runs in behind like so if this action happens off the switch, or the ball goes to the next line, him running in behind will pull a player. And who is also able to do this? De Bruyne. So that was the other situation there, if they couldn't penetrate on the strong side. And then the last one was the rotation between Foden and De Bruyne. switching positions. Sometimes it will look like this, or the other way around, whichever was needed. Here's another example of switch. The other part of the third switch was pushing De Bruyne higher, pushing Da Silva higher, and Kyle Walker in the center channel with Gondoyan. Again, you look at the green, that's Da Silva getting higher, creating a 3 versus 3 in between the lines. Foden and De Bruyne switching positions, primarily for crossing situations, which De Bruyne is unbelievable at doing. The result is the result. The idea was to kind of theorize why they were making certain actions, certain decisions, certain changes in organization. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I would love to hear what you guys think. See you on the next one. Thanks, guys.